This narrative is a lyrical, character-driven story about a man and a woman who have each survived personal devastation, failed marriages, grief, and the slow rebuilding of identity. Through vivid metaphors and evocative imagery, the story traces their separate journeys through loss and resilience, culminating in a quietly powerful meeting that feels less like falling in love and more like recognizing a long-lost part of themselves in each other. Main characters. The man emerges from a traumatic past, burning time, with nothing but a physical scar and emotional residue. Loses his marriage, reputation, and hopes, symbolized by everything turning to ash. Spends years in emotional isolation, haunted by regret and insomnia, gradually rebuilding himself. Learns to survive and adapt, becoming stronger and more compassionate with age, capable of caring for others, yet still marked by loss. Outwardly unremarkable, inwardly marked by resilience, smoke still coming off him. The woman survives her own hardships, a too-young marriage, profound loss, and the gradual hardening of her spirit. Learns independence, self-acceptance, and the strength to stop apologizing for her existence. Develops a presence that is both sharp and magnetic, with a humor and honesty born from suffering. Resolves never to beg for love again, embodying a hard-won self-sufficiency. Key events and themes. Aftermath and recovery. Both characters are depicted as survivors of metaphorical fires, literal and emotional, that erase their past lives. The man's journey is compared to searching through the ruins for something unburned. He finds only the possibility of regrowth, illustrated by the image of a crocus pushing through ashes. The woman's journey is one of shedding illusions and learning the limits of endurance, ultimately emerging more self-aware and unapologetic. The meeting takes place on an ordinary October day in a feed store, described in sensory detail, smells of apples and wood smoke. Their first exchange is wordless but deeply significant, likened to tectonic plates shifting, subtle yet world-changing. The man's scar and the woman's posture signal their histories to each other. Recognition and connection. Their bond is not described as falling in love, but as recognizing something deeply familiar and essential. The story uses metaphors of shelter and rain to describe their choice. She chooses him for safety after too many storms. He chooses her as the earth welcomes rain after drought. Together, they are like trees that have learned not to burn, standing strong and unyielding. Notable imagery and examples. Fire and ash. Both lives are described as having been destroyed by fire, literal and metaphorical, with only scars and memories remaining. Growth through ruin. The crocus pushing through soot and the tree growing straight on a cliff illustrate resilience and new beginnings. Physical details. The man's faded jeans, flannel shirts, and lingering scent of smoke. The woman's laugh and the way she carries her shoulders. Dialogue. Their conversation over coffee is spare but meaningful, hinting at mutual recognition and acceptance. Conclusion. The story is less about romance and more about survival, healing, and the quiet power of recognition between two people who have endured and learned. Their union is portrayed as a meeting of equals, each having learned to stand alone, now choosing to stand together, not out of need, but out of a remembered fullness and strength. The man and the woman who will one day choose him. He came out of the burning time with nothing left but the taste of smoke in the back of his throat and a scar that ran from the notch of his collarbone to the soft place just above his belt where a woman once rested her head and listened to him lie about tomorrow. Everything else had gone up like cheap curtains. His marriage, his name in the mouths of people who used to love him, the small, polite hopes he kept in a coffee can on the shelf above the stove. All ash. For a long while he walked around inside his own ribs like a man trapped in a house after the firemen have left, kicking at charred timbers, looking for one photograph that didn't curl at the edges when he touched it. He never found it. So he started over with what was still breathing. One morning in March, snow still knee-deep in the cuts and hollows of northern Vermont, he stood on the porch of the rented trailer and felt something push up through the blackened floor of his chest, the way crocuses used to push through the soot of his grandfather's burn piles when he was a boy. A green so fierce it looked obscene against the ruin. He didn't trust it. He wanted to step on it. Instead, he let it live. 10 more years of winter and divorce papers and bar fights he walked away from because breaking another man's jaw suddenly felt like breaking his own. 10 more years of waking up at 3:17 a.m. exactly, heart kicking like a horse that remembers the barn burning down. He grew crooked first, bent by wind, by cheap whiskey, by the weight of alimony and the heavier weight of knowing he had earned every ounce of it. Then he grew straight again, the way a tree on a cliff learns to grow straight in spite of everything. By 45, he had shoulders wide enough to carry a child who wasn't his through an airport without once setting her down. By 50, he had hands that shook only when he was alone, and even then, not for long. By 60, he had the kind of silence that made other people start telling the truth before they meant to. He never looked like much from a distance. Jeans gone pale at the knees, flannel shirts washed until the checks bled into one another, a back that hurt when the weather turned, and a mouth that had forgotten how to ask for anything. But get close, and you could smell the smoke still coming off him, faint like incense from a church nobody attends anymore. Women circled for a while. Some stayed long enough to warm their hands. None stayed long enough to matter. He told himself he didn't mind. Across 3 states and 4 decades of her own private conflagrations, she was doing the same brutal arithmetic. She had married too young, left too late, learned the precise tensile strength of a lie told in a kitchen at midnight with a baby on her hip. She had buried a brother, buried a marriage, buried the version of herself who once believed love was a debt you could pay off if you just tried harder. She came out the other side smaller, sharper, funnier, and dangerous in the way a woman gets dangerous when she finally stops apologizing for taking up space. She learned to sleep alone without dreaming of rescue. She learned to laugh in a register that made men lean forward whether they wanted to or not. She learned the sound a heart makes when it decides, quietly and without announcement, that it will never again beg. Then, one ordinary Tuesday in October, the kind of October that smells like apples going over and wood smoke and the first honest cold that says winter is done pretending, she walked into the feed store for 50-pound bags of layer pellets, and there he was, standing by the counter, arguing with the clerk about the price of sweet feed in a voice like gravel rolling downhill slow. Their eyes met the way 2 continents must have met once, grinding together without ceremony, changing the weather forever. She saw the scar climbing out of his shirt collar like a pale river. He saw the way she carried her shoulders as if she had already decided the world would have to come through her to get to anyone she loved. Neither of them smiled, but something in the air shifted, the way it shifts when the last piece of a puzzle you stopped believing in suddenly slides into place with a click you feel in your teeth. Later, over coffee that tasted like rust and redemption in the diner with the cracked red booths, she would say, "I thought I was done with all that." And he would answer, voice low, the way a man speaks when he's afraid the truth might spook and run. "I was done too. Turns out the heart has other plans." They did not fall in love. They recognized it. The way you recognize a mountain you have only ever seen in dreams, and then one morning wake up living on its flank with no memory of the climb. She chose him the way a smart woman chooses shelter, not because the storm is coming, but because she has already lived through too many without it. He chose her the way ancient ground chooses rain. not because he was empty, but because he finally remembered what full felt like. And together they stood, two trees that had learned separately how not to burn, while the wind moved through their branches and found nothing left to take.